I saved the Alpha King's pups while his Luna abandoned them. Now he declares I'm his true mate. The wind howled through the frostbitten trees, carrying the scent of snow and pine. The forest lay in silence, broken only by the occasional snap of a frozen branch underfoot. Ilara moved carefully, her boots leaving shallow prints in the fresh snow. The cold bit through her cloak, but she barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, on the faint, desperate cries she had heard earlier, cries that no ordinary traveler would heed. She followed the sound, weaving between gnarled trees and frozen streams, until she came to a small clearing. There, in a bed of ice and dead leaves, were the wolf pups. They were tiny, shivering, their fur matted with snow and frost. Their eyes, barely open, glimmered with helpless fear. Ilara's heart clenched. She knelt beside them, her breath clouding in the frigid air. "Shh, it's all right," she whispered softly, picking up the smallest one. Its warmth was almost nothing, but it was alive. "You'll be safe now." She looked around the clearing, searching for the mother, but saw no sign. A part of her knew the truth before it fully sank in. The Luna, sworn protector of the Alpha King's pups, had abandoned them. Why, she did not yet know. But the consequence was clear. If the pups were left here, they would not survive the night. Ilara's mind raced. She could not leave them. Her own past had taught her the sting of abandonment, the weight of being left to fend for oneself. She had survived because of her own courage and resourcefulness. These pups deserved no less. Gently, she gathered the litter into a worn blanket she carried for warmth. Their tiny bodies pressed against her, trembling. She wrapped them carefully, murmuring words of comfort as she stood. Her eyes scanned the forest, alert for predators or wandering pack members who might notice her intrusion. In this realm, an Omega, especially one without rank, was not supposed to interfere with the Alpha King's family. To do so was to invite danger. Yet fear did not stop her. Compassion was stronger. She moved quickly, choosing a path she had used many times before, an old hunter's trail that led to a hidden cave near the cliffside. There, the pups would be safe, at least until she could find more permanent shelter. Her boots slipped over ice and snow, and each step was a careful balance between speed and caution. The forest seemed to watch her, shadows stretching unnaturally, and a strange whispering wind tugged at the edges of her cloak. By the time she reached the cave, the night had deepened. Stars glimmered faintly through breaks in the clouded sky, and the blood moon's pale light cast everything in a surreal glow. She laid the pups down carefully, arranging them so they could share warmth. Their soft whimpers and tiny movements tugged at her heart, and she settled beside them, wrapping her cloak around herself and the litter. It was then that she felt it, a presence, strong, commanding, and impossible to ignore. Her senses sharpened, and the hair on her arms stood on end. Somewhere deep in the forest, something moved, silent and deliberate. Her pulse quickened, and she instinctively held the pups closer. A figure stepped into the faint light. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the silent grace of a predator, he stopped at the edge of the cave. His eyes, silver like molten ice, fixed on her. Ilara froze. Her mind screamed for her to run, but her body remained rooted. There was power in him, a force that seemed to bend the air itself. "You've stolen what belongs to me." His voice was low, smooth, and unyielding. "And yet I cannot look away." Ilara's heart pounded. She had heard of the Alpha King Rieger. Feared by many, worshipped by some, his name alone commanded obedience. She had never met him, yet here he was, standing before her, and she felt as if the world had shifted. The pup stirred slightly, sensing his presence, but did not cry out. I am only trying to save them," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "They would have died." Rieger took a step closer. His eyes never left hers, and in them she saw more than anger. There was curiosity, something unspoken, a flicker of something buried beneath years of command and solitude. "You risk much to interfere," he said quietly. "Do you know what you are doing, little Omega?" "Yes," she replied, though her heart quivered. "I know they are innocent." They deserve life. There was a pause, the silence between them heavy, almost sacred. Rieger's gaze softened slightly, not in tenderness but in acknowledgement of courage. "You are reckless," he said finally, "and yet you are brave." Alara felt a strange warmth at his words, though the cold of the night pressed around them. The pups nuzzled against her, tiny hearts beating fast. She looked up at him again, searching his face for any hint of threat, and found only something she could not name. "You have taken what is mine," he said again, but this time there was no accusation, only a statement of fact. "I must decide what to do with you." Alara's breath caught. The weight of his presence, his authority, and the unspoken threat pressed down on her. Yet she did not flinch. Her hands rested protectively over the pups, and her voice, though soft, held steady. "I will not let them die. If you take me, you will have to take the pups as well." Rieger studied her for a long moment, and then, to her surprise, he crouched slightly, keeping his distance. His eyes swept over the litter, and a muscle in his jaw twitched. "You have a strange strength," he murmured. "I have not seen it in an Omega in many years." "What do you mean?" she asked, cautious but curious. "Most would cower, beg, or run. You stand and fight without violence. You care without expectation. You have made yourself known to me in ways few dare." Alara's chest tightened. She had never sought recognition or praise, yet his words stirred something deep within her, a mixture of fear, wonder, and longing. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that she was not entirely alone in the world. For a moment, silence wrapped around them, broken only by the faint whimpers of the pups. Then, with deliberate calm, Rieger rose to his full height. "You will remain here tonight," he said. "No one may find you. Come morning, we will see what path lies ahead. But know this, little Omega. You have drawn my attention. That is not a thing done lightly." Alara nodded, unsure if relief or fear dominated her heart. She watched as he disappeared back into the forest, leaving her alone with the pups. She exhaled slowly, allowing herself a moment of reprieve. The snow fell softly, dusting the cave and the sleeping pups in a pale shimmer. Night stretched on, long and silent, filled with the occasional whisper of wind or rustle of unseen creatures. Alara kept watch, her senses alert, and felt a strange connection with the forest around her. Even in the cold and darkness, life pulsed, fragile yet persistent. And somewhere beyond the trees, she sensed Rieger watching, always watching. As the first hint of dawn brushed the horizon with faint pink light, the pups stirred, and Alara smiled softly. She had survived nights like this before, but never with such fragile, precious lives depending on her. She felt a quiet determination settle within her, a promise that no matter the dangers ahead, she would protect them. And yet, as she gazed into the forest, her heart shivered with anticipation and fear. For Rieger was not a man to be ignored, and she had already felt the pull of his presence in ways she did not understand. She did not know what he would do next, or how the Alpha King would change the course of her life forever. The frost glistened in the first rays of light, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Alara hugged the pups close, whispering promises she hoped she could keep. But somewhere in the distance, a shadow moved among the trees, a silent reminder that her night of rescue was only the beginning. And in that shadow, Rieger's eyes gleamed, unwavering and intense, a silent vow that their fates were now intertwined. The fortress of the Alpha King rose like a crown of ice on the cliffs above the forest. Its walls shimmered in the pale morning light, carved from stone that seemed older than time itself. Towers reached skyward, their spires sharp against the rising sun, and banners bearing the silver wolf of the Alpha's lineage fluttered in the cold wind. Inside, the air was colder still, not from snow, but from centuries of authority, power, and unspoken secrets. Alara's breath fogged in the hall as she was led through winding corridors by silent guards. The wolf pups rested in a small woven basket at her side, their tiny bodies warm against her hands. She kept her head low, careful to observe without revealing fear. Every step echoed against the stone, reminding her that she was in a place where power spoke louder than words. The guards brought her before a wide chamber at the heart of the fortress. There, seated on a throne carved from blackened iron and etched with symbols of strength and dominance, was Rieger. His silver eyes, bright and unwavering, followed her as she stepped forward. The air between them seemed alive, charged with a current neither of them could deny. "You have done something most would never dare," he said, voice calm yet resonant, carrying across the hall. "You have taken what is mine and cared for it without fear." Alara bowed slightly, feeling the weight of his gaze. "They would have died," she replied softly. "I could not leave them alone." Rieger's jaw tightened. "Few understand the consequences of touching the Alpha's bloodline," he said. "Even fewer survive such recklessness." "I am not afraid," she said, though her heart beat fast. She did not know if it was fear, awe, or something more complicated stirring inside her. "I only wish to help." He studied her for a long moment, and then, in a movement that seemed both deliberate and effortless, he rose from his throne. He approached her slowly, his presence filling the room. The warmth of the pups at her side seemed to ground her, yet it did little to ease the tension in her chest. "You are unlike any Omega I have ever met," he said. "You do not beg, you do not tremble, you care without seeking reward. This unsettles me more than you can imagine." Alara's cheeks warmed, but she kept her voice steady. "I only do what I believe is right." Rieger's lips curved slightly, not in a smile but in acknowledgement. "Perhaps that is why I have claimed you." Her breath caught. "Claimed me." "Yes," he said, his silver eyes locking onto hers. "You have drawn my attention in ways that cannot be ignored. You will remain under my protection and under my claim as my true mate." The words struck her like thunder. In the realm she knew, to be claimed by the Alpha King was both an honor and a burden. It was a bond recognized by law, magic, and the loyalty of the pack, but she had never expected this. She began, but no words came. Her mind raced, torn between fear, disbelief, and the strange stirrings in her chest at his proximity. "I am only an Omega," she finally said. "I do not belong in this place." Rieger shook his head slowly, his expression unreadable. "Belonging is not determined by rank or station. It is determined by choice, courage, and the bond that binds us. You have shown qualities few can claim. That is why I speak now, because I recognize your strength and I do not wish to ignore it." Alara looked down at the pups, who had begun to stir and whimper slightly. Their tiny eyes reflected the torchlight, innocent and trusting. In that moment, she realized that accepting Rieger's claim did not mean abandoning them. It meant ensuring their survival within the strongest walls of the kingdom. And yet, she hesitated. The chamber door opened quietly, and a group of pack members entered, watching her with cautious curiosity. Some whispered among themselves, others simply observed, silent and calculating. She could feel their judgment like a weight pressing against her shoulders. "Introduce yourself," Rieger commanded softly, his voice carrying authority. Alara straightened. "I am Alara," she said. "I found the pups abandoned in the forest and cared for them. That is all I have done." A young wolf warrior, tall and lean, stepped forward. "Most outsiders would not survive the forest's dangers," he said. "Yet you not only survived, you protected the Alpha's pups. That is unexpected." Rieger's gaze swept over the group, then returned to her. "Your courage is noted," he said, "and so is your heart. You are not here to manipulate, to seek favor, or to gain rank. You act because it is right. That is why I claim you as my mate." Alara's pulse quickened. She wanted to protest, to deny the claim, yet there was a pull she could not resist, a magnetic force that drew her closer to him, despite the weight of fear and uncertainty. "You will have protection," he continued, his tone softer now, almost private. "And you will have responsibilities. You will care for the pups, yes, but you will also remain here in the fortress until your place is fully determined. You will learn our ways, our laws, and the intricacies of this pack. In return, I offer my bond." Her lips parted, unsure of what to say. "And if I refuse?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Rieger's eyes darkened slightly, a storm behind the calm surface. "You will not refuse," he said firmly, though not cruelly. "This is not a matter of desire alone. You have touched my life in ways few have dared. To walk away would be impossible for either of us. The bond has begun, whether you understand it or not." The tension between them was palpable, and Alara realized, with a mix of fear and awe, that the Alpha King was not only a ruler of lands and wolves, but a force of nature. To resist him entirely would be like trying to stop a storm with a whisper. As the day wore on, Rieger allowed her to tend to the pups in a small chamber off the main hall. The room was modest but warm, with blankets piled high for the litter. The pups nestled against her, and for a moment she allowed herself a sigh of relief. They were safe for now. Yet the presence of the Alpha King lingered outside the door, silent and watchful. She could feel his eyes upon her, assessing, protective, and possessive. Alara worked quietly, feeding the pups and checking their small bodies for signs of injury. In her heart, she felt a strange mixture of fear and fascination. The afternoon shadows lengthened, and a messenger arrived with news. A rival pack had been spotted near the northern border, testing the Alpha King's strength in his absence. The fortress, usually calm in its imposing presence, now hummed with tension. Warriors prepared quietly, bowing and moving with precision, while Rieger's attention shifted to strategies, maps, and warnings. Alara watched him from the small chamber, feeling a pang of longing. He was a king, yes, and a predator, but beneath the silver eyes and commanding presence, she sensed loneliness, an unspoken pain that few could reach. That realization, soft and fragile, settled in her chest. She wanted to help him, not with power, not with influence, but with understanding. Night fell over the fortress, thick and dark, the halls lit by torches that cast long, flickering shadows. Rieger entered the chamber where she was tending to the pups, his movements quiet but deliberate. "You have done well," he said, voice low, almost gentle. "They trust you already, and in time so will the pack. But you must understand, claiming a place beside me will not be simple. The court, the warriors, and even those closest to me may test you. They may resent your presence, your courage, and even your bond with me." "I understand," she replied. "I am not here to compete with anyone. I only wish to care for the pups and learn." He nodded, his eyes studying hers. "That may be your greatest strength, and perhaps your greatest weakness. Do not mistake courage for understanding. The world we inhabit is not gentle, Alara. The bond I offer is not a shield from hardship. It is a promise of protection, but also of responsibility." Her heart tightened. She wanted to ask more, to know what lay ahead, but something in his gaze silenced her. Instead, she simply nodded, trusting in a force she did not yet fully understand. He stepped closer, and she could feel the warmth emanating from him, a stark contrast to the cold stone and snow outside. "Rest now," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tomorrow we begin what cannot be undone. You have been claimed, and the bond has begun." As he left the chamber, the silence pressed down, thick and almost sacred. Alara wrapped the pups close, their tiny hearts beating fast against her chest. Outside, the fortress hummed with preparation, shadows moving like whispers in the torchlight. She knew that her life had changed forever, and that the path ahead would test her courage, her heart, and the fragile bond that had already begun to form. She looked out through the small window, past the frozen battlements, to the forest where she had first found the pups. The wind carried the faintest whisper of movement, and she shivered, unsure if it was fear or anticipation. She knew the Alpha King was watching, always watching, and that her choices in the coming days would shape not only the fate of the pups, but of herself, and perhaps even the heart of the king who had claimed her. And somewhere deep within her, a quiet voice whispered. She had stepped into a world of shadows, power, and destiny, and there was no turning back. The moon rose over the fortress, silver light spilling across stone walls and frozen towers. Inside, the halls were quiet, yet heavy with anticipation. Alara could feel the weight of the Alpha King's presence, even when he was not beside her. Her nights had become restless. Her dreams were tangled with the cries of the wolf pups and the haunting gaze of Rieger, whose attention seemed to follow her everywhere. This night, however, he did not approach her immediately. Instead, a knock came at the small chamber door. A messenger, silent and respectful, handed her a sealed scroll. The wax bore the symbol of the Alpha King's lineage, a wolf's head etched in silver. Alara broke the seal with trembling fingers. Inside, the letter was brief, yet its words carried the weight of centuries. Come to the sanctum. There are truths you must understand about the bloodline, the curse, and the bond that ties us. Her pulse quickened. She had heard whispers of the sanctum, a hidden chamber beneath the fortress where magic and lineage converged, where secrets of the Alpha bloodline were guarded for generations. Only those the Alpha trusted, or those bound to him, were allowed entry. She had been claimed, yes, but entering this place meant stepping even closer into his world, and into danger she did not yet comprehend. When she arrived, the air was cooler than the halls above. Ancient runes glowed faintly along the walls, pulsing with a soft silver light. Candles flickered on pedestals carved from stone, casting shadows that danced and twisted. The scent of old parchment and faint incense hung in the air. At the center, Rieger stood before an altar, his silver eyes catching the dim glow. "Alara," he said, voice low and steady. "You are here, that is good." She stepped forward, heart pounding, holding the pup's basket close. He did not gesture for her to leave them. Instead, his eyes softened slightly. "They are safe," he said, "and you have done well. But you must understand the truth of my lineage and the curse that shadows us all." Alara swallowed, curiosity and fear coiling together. "A curse?" Rieger's jaw tightened. "Long ago our bloodline was marked. A spell, ancient and unbroken, was cast upon my line. It twists loyalty and love. Those closest to me, family, Luna, even mates, can be torn from me, sometimes by choice, sometimes by fate. My Luna abandoned the pups to protect them and perhaps to protect me. She believed she could save what is mine by leaving." Alara's heart ached. "So it wasn't betrayal." "No," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "It was a choice forced by fear and magic, but the result is the same. I am alone until now." Her hands tightened around the basket. "And me?" He stepped closer, slow and deliberate, but did not touch her. "You came willingly, guided by courage, not fear. You chose to act to protect. That is why you are different. You are not just another pawn in the curse. You are a force that might change it." Alara's pulse quickened, and she felt a strange warmth at his words, though a part of her still trembled. She had seen kings, warriors, and rulers before, but none had ever spoken to her as if she could matter to the fate of their world. Yet here in the dim sanctum she realized she could not deny the pull she felt toward him. "I don't know if I am strong enough," she admitted softly. "I am only me." Rieger's eyes softened, yet held a quiet fire. "Strength is not measured by battles fought alone. It is measured by courage, by heart, by the willingness to stand in the face of shadow and storm. You have that, Alara, and it terrifies me as much as it comforts me." She looked down, unsure what to say, until a soft whimper reminded her of the pups. They nestled closer against her, tiny bodies warm and trusting. For a moment the weight of the curse, the fortress, and the king himself seemed less terrifying. Rieger studied her, and for a heartbeat, silence wrapped them both. Then he spoke again, quieter, almost a whisper. "I have been alone for too long. My heart has been closed, my trust earned only in fear. Yet I find myself drawn to you in ways I cannot explain, and that is dangerous." Alara swallowed. "Dangerous how?" "Because the curse seeks to destroy what it cannot control," he said. "It will test us, it will test you, and it will test me, but to resist may be impossible." Her gaze lifted to meet his, and in that moment she understood the truth of his words. This was not only a bond of claim, it was a bond of fate, intertwined with magic, history, and unspoken longing. And yet, for all its danger, it pulled at her heart in ways that frightened her more than any shadow in the forest ever could. The quiet of the sanctum was broken by a sudden sound, a distant howl from the forest above, sharp and urgent. Alara's senses snapped into alert. "The rival pack," she whispered. Rieger's eyes narrowed. "They test me as I expected, but tonight that is not your concern." "No," she asked, tension tightening in her chest. "Tonight your concern is here," he said, gesturing to the sanctum. "Tomorrow the world may demand everything from us." They spent the next hours beneath the ancient stones, Rieger explaining the intricacies of the curse, the bloodline, and the delicate balance of power within the kingdom. Alara listened, absorbing every word. She learned of rival packs seeking to exploit weakness, of the delicate politics of the Alpha's court, and of the magical forces that bound loyalty, love, and destiny in ways most could never comprehend. And throughout it all, the pups slept quietly, safe under her watch. They were small beacons of life and hope in a world governed by power and shadows. When the lesson ended, Rieger stepped closer, his presence enveloping her. "You have seen the shadow that haunts me," he said softly. "You have heard the story of betrayal and pain. And yet you are here. You do not turn away. That is why I cannot ignore you." Alara felt her heart hammer in her chest. "I cannot turn away," she admitted. "Not from them, not from you, not from what is right." His silver eyes glimmered, and for a moment he looked more vulnerable than he had ever allowed himself to be. "Then we are bound," he whispered. "By claim, by courage, by fate. And yet, the path ahead will be treacherous. You must be ready." She nodded, determination solidifying in her chest. "I will face it," she said. "Whatever comes, I will not leave them, nor you." A quiet wind whispered through the sanctum, carrying a faint glow from the runes on the walls. The magic that bound Rieger's bloodline seemed to stir, sensing the presence of a new force, one that could change the tide of centuries of shadow and curse. Suddenly, the floor beneath them trembled. The runes flared brighter, and a low hum filled the air. Alara clutched the pups closer, and Rieger's hand moved instinctively to her shoulder, steadying her. "The curse is aware," he said, voice low and tense. "It knows the bond has begun. It will test us, our trust, our courage, our hearts, and it will not be merciful." Alara looked up at him, eyes wide. "Then we face it together," he nodded, his expression both stern and gentle. "Together," he said, "but you must understand, trust alone may not be enough. There will be shadows within this fortress, within our hearts, and even within the pups themselves. Danger is not just outside these walls, it is within everything we touch." The pups stirred again, whining softly. Alara brushed their fur, speaking in quiet, soothing tones. Rieger watched her, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he observed the bond forming between her and the litter. In her courage, he saw hope. In her compassion, he saw the possibility of redemption, not just for her but for himself. Night stretched on, and the sanctum settled into an uneasy quiet. Alara felt exhaustion weighing on her, yet sleep was impossible. Her thoughts swirled with the weight of what she had learned, the curse, the Alpha King's solitude, and the bond that had begun to form between them. Rieger approached one last time before the night ended, his hand brushing lightly over hers as he adjusted a blanket around the pups. "Rest now," he said quietly. "Tomorrow, we face challenges that may change everything, but tonight know that you are not alone." And neither are they. Alara looked up at him, the silver light of the moon reflecting in his eyes. For the first time she saw not just a king, but a man shaped by pain, burdened by destiny, yet capable of care, courage, and even love. "I will not fail," she whispered. "I know," he said, his voice barely audible, yet carrying the weight of unspoken promises. Outside the sanctum, shadows shifted in the corridors and the halls of the fortress. Danger lingered, always at the edges, waiting for a moment of weakness. But inside, in the glow of runes and candlelight, a new force had begun to grow, a bond of courage, trust, and a hint of love, fragile yet unyielding, between a lone Omega and the Alpha King who had claimed her. Snow fell in slow, heavy flakes, blanketing the fortress and the cliffs in a soft, cold silence. Inside, the halls hummed with tension, the quiet broken only by the occasional clatter of armor or shuffle of boots. Elara moved carefully, the basket of pups resting against her hip. Her eyes, once filled with awe and fear, now held quiet determination. She had learned much in the past nights, about the curse that haunted the Alpha King, about the fragile politics of the fortress, and about the weight of being claimed by Rieger. But no lesson had prepared her for the sound of alarm bells ringing through the halls, echoing like a storm across stone. She froze, her heart tightening. Rival forces had breached the northern border. The same pack that had tested the Alpha King before had returned, and they were bold, determined to seize the pups and challenge the Alpha's claim. Rieger entered the chamber where she had prepared a safe corner for the pups, his silver eyes flashing with controlled fury. "Elara," he said, voice low and urgent, "they will come for the pups. You must stay here, they are your charge, but you are also my mate. I will not let them harm you or them." "I will not leave them," Elara said firmly, setting the basket down. "I will fight with you." Rieger's expression softened for a brief moment, a flash of gratitude and admiration crossing his features. Then the hardened mask returned. "Then stand close to me," he said, "but follow my command. Our bond may be tested, but together we can face this." The corridors trembled as the first intruders approached. Shadows flitted across the walls, figures moving silently yet with deadly intent. Elara's pulse raced, her courage steadied by the knowledge that Rieger was beside her. He was more than a king. He was the force of nature she had glimpsed in the forest, a predator shaped by centuries of bloodline and curse, yet capable of fierce protection. They moved through the fortress as one, silent and precise. Rieger led, every step controlled, every movement calculated. Elara followed, her senses alert, heart pounding. The pups, safe in a hidden chamber, whimpered occasionally, but she whispered soothingly to them, her voice calm despite the storm approaching. The rival pack entered the outer hall, their leader tall and muscular, eyes gleaming with greed and challenge. "The Alpha King's claim is weak," the intruder said. "We take what is ours. Those pups belong to the strongest." Rieger stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. His silver eyes blazed and the air around him seemed to shift. "Those pups are mine," he said, voice resonating through the hall. "You will not touch them." A battle began, not only of claws and strength, but of strategy, trust, and unspoken bonds. Elara stayed close, her small hands steady as she tended to the pups, yet she could feel the power of Rieger flowing around her. Every move he made, every command, every shift of his gaze, was a reminder of the trust he had placed in her, and the trust she now held in him. The fight raged through the hallways and into the snowy courtyard. Rieger moved with the grace of a predator, lethal yet precise. The rival pack faltered against his skill, but the real test was the curse that lingered in the shadows. It whispered in the wind, tugged at hearts, and threatened to turn allies against one another. Elara felt it too, a subtle pressure, a pull at her courage. Yet she did not falter. She had learned that true strength was not in avoidance of danger, but in facing it with heart and clarity. The pups were alive, the fortress was theirs, and the Alpha King, her mate, was fighting not for dominance but for life, trust, and connection. At the heart of the courtyard, the leader of the rival pack lunged at Rieger, underestimating the power of his bond with Elara. In a precise move, Rieger intercepted, disarming the intruder and forcing him to retreat. The remaining attackers, witnessing the strength of the Alpha King and the unyielding courage of his mate, faltered and withdrew into the night. Silence settled again over the fortress, broken only by the heavy breathing of its defenders. Rieger turned to Alara, eyes softening as he took in the way she held the pups, her hair dusted with snow and her face flushed from tension. "You fought bravely," he said, voice low. "You did not falter." Alara met his gaze, her own filled with awe and relief. "We did it together," she said. "I could not have done it without you." He stepped closer, the air around them charged not with danger but with unspoken understanding. "And yet," he said softly, "you risked yourself. That is the measure of your courage." She felt her chest tighten, a mixture of pride and vulnerability. "I would do it again," she whispered. "For them, for you." Rieger's hand brushed hers, tentative yet firm. The simple touch carried centuries of weight and power, yet also something fragile and human, trust, hope, and a promise of protection. "Then we are bound," he murmured, "by courage, by choice, and by the bond we share. The curse may linger, but together we may overcome it." The pups stirred, sensing the calm between them. Alara smiled, brushing their soft fur, her heart swelling with relief. In them she saw not just innocence, but the promise of life, continuity, and the ability to heal wounds long thought unrepairable. As dawn broke over the fortress, snow glittering like silver across the battlements, Rieger led Alara to the highest tower. Together, they gazed over the kingdom. The expanse of forests, mountains, and rivers stretched before them. The wind carried whispers of the world beyond, challenges still to come, yet in that moment the bond between Omega and Alpha, protector and mate, was undeniable. "You have changed everything," he said, voice soft yet full of weight. "Not just the lives of the pups, but my own. I have been alone, trapped by the curse, and yet you have shown me that strength and courage can come from the gentlest of hearts." Alara looked up at him, emotions swirling, fear, hope, longing, and something deeper she did not yet name. "I only did what I thought was right," she said, "but I never imagined it could mean so much." Rieger's gaze softened, silver eyes reflecting the morning light. "It means everything," he said, "and it also means the path ahead will not be simple. Shadows remain within the fortress, within the kingdom, and even within ourselves, but we will face them together." She nodded, her resolve firm. "Together." He stepped closer, the cold wind brushing against them, and for the first time he allowed himself to lower the walls he had kept for centuries. "You are my mate," he said, the words carrying power, promise, and vulnerability all at once. "And I will protect you, as fiercely as I have protected all that is mine." Alara felt warmth spread through her chest, a bond unspoken yet undeniable. The fear she had felt when first meeting him had transformed into trust, admiration, and a quiet yearning. In the Alpha King, she had found more than strength. She had found someone willing to see courage in her heart, to honor her choices, and to walk beside her into the unknown. The pups stirred again, tiny movements reminding them both of the life they had fought to protect. Alara crouched, brushing her hand over their soft fur. "They are safe," she whispered, "thanks to you and to us." Rieger knelt beside her, the silver of his eyes softer now, human and tender in a way he rarely allowed. "Not just to us," he said quietly, "to you. You saved them, and in doing so, you have saved a part of me I thought was lost forever." A quiet wind rustled through the tower, carrying whispers of the curse, now subdued but not gone. Alara and Rieger stood together, side by side, hearts aligned with courage, trust, and the bond that neither magic nor shadow could easily sever. As the sun rose fully over the kingdom, lighting the fortress in warm gold, a sense of calm settled in. The rivals had been defeated, the pups safe, and the bond between Omega and Alpha solidified. Yet beyond the mountains, beyond the forests, distant shadows lingered, ancient forces waiting, watching, yet powerless against the strength of hearts united by courage and love. Alara leaned against Rieger, feeling the warmth of his presence, and allowed herself a small, hopeful smile. The curse was still a shadow over their lives, but the bond they had forged promised redemption, protection, and perhaps the possibility of a future where love and courage could triumph over fear and darkness. In that moment, atop the highest tower of the fortress, with snow sparkling like silver around them and the pups safe below, both Alpha and Omega understood one undeniable truth. Their destinies were now entwined, their bond unbroken, and their hearts, though tested, stronger than ever.